On the whole, The Simpsons cast has remained consistent for over 30 years. However, when a show runs for this long, things can happen in real life which may require the plot to be reworked. The Simpsons have occasionally killed off main characters for reasons such as voice actors quitting, cast passing away, and sometimes simply to increase ratings. Some of these deaths don't have much weight, but others are so heartfelt they hit hard. I've compiled the 6 saddest deaths that have happened on The Simpsons. I was going to do a top 5, but I thought it wouldn't be appropriate to skip over what could possibly be the most famous Simpsons death. Following Maggie Roswell's departure from the show, her most prominent character, Maud Flanders, was killed off. Allegedly, the show got such high ratings from this that Roswell changed her mind and went back, but of course she could only voice Maud in flashbacks, as well as less prominent characters such as Helen Lovejoy and Luann van Houten. Anyway, in this episode, the Simpsons and Flanders families are at a racetrack. Cheerleaders come over with t-shirt cannons, and Homer taunts them. They fire the t-shirts, only for him to get distracted, Maud to be hit by them, and fall off the back of the stand. There's a section of the episode where Ned, Rod and Todd are grieving, but there isn't actually a large focus on this. The whole episode remains quite humorous, and doesn't really dwell on the mourning side of things. In a later episode, we see just how unable Ned's been to move past her death, but again, there isn't much sense of sadness as they keep it quite light-hearted. This is why I've ranked Maud's death the lowest. We don't get to see some of the quality writing there is in Futurama or earlier Simpsons episodes. On the subject of Ned's wives, at number 5 we have Edna Krabappel. Mrs. K was one of the most prominent, loved characters on the show, but following Marcia Wallace's death, it was only respectful to put the character to rest. Rather than committing a whole episode to her like Maud, it's done a lot more tastefully by giving a minute-long tribute at the end of an episode. Ned and Edna dance together, followed by Ned mourning, with Edna and Maud's pictures on the table. Though the sequence is short, this death makes the list because she was such a beloved character. At number 4, we have Waylon Smithers Sr. In the episode, we find out that Homer discovered a dead body when he was 12. They follow clues and trace it back to Mr. Burns. He explains how Smithers' father risked his life to save the whole town. He ends up dying an agonizing death due to the love he had for his son. We see very little of the character, but the show still manages to portray an incredibly noble figure, so we're able to form an attachment and admiration. In the top 3, we move on to our tear-jerking deaths. At number 3, we have Mona Simpson. Homer's mother only tends to pop up in the odd episode, but that doesn't make her death any less sad. Mona returns once again, but Homer's dismissive because she keeps breaking his heart. He expresses this, but then regrets it and decides to apologise. Upon going downstairs, he discovers her in front of the fire, not moving. At the end of the episode, there's a montage of moments Homer and Mona had together, with mother and child reunion playing, which is beautifully fitting. The episode well captures Mona's hippie spirit, so is rather sweet, and hard-hitting for viewers who've been in the same situation as Homer. At number 2, we have Beatrice Simmons. If you haven't seen this episode, you may have never heard of her, but I heavily recommend that you watch it, as it's a beautiful example of just how incredible the writing on The Simpsons was in their early days. Abe is feeling incredibly lonely and neglected, until he finds a woman in the retirement home that doesn't take him for granted. They have a romantic few weeks together, until her birthday, when the Simpson family, ignoring Abe's protests, take him away to a discount line safari, resulting in him not seeing her. Upon his return, Bea is being lifted into a van, having died the previous night. What's particularly upsetting about this, in addition to the fact that Abe missed her last moments, is that she may not have died if he'd been there with her. The death in itself was emotional, but so was the rest of the episode. Abe inherits her fortune of $100,000, but concludes that he can't find happiness in spending the money, as it won't bring her back. He discovers the selfish nature of people in town, so decides to gamble the money. He resents Homer for being the reason he missed Bea's birthday, but Homer saves him from losing all the money, so they make up. One of the things Bea and Abe bonded over was how awful the retirement home was, so he finally decides to reinvest his money there, so that the seniors can have a more pleasant experience. Overall, it was an incredibly sad, wholesome episode, and the fact that we managed to feel for a character we didn't know 10 minutes prior earns the episode its number 2 spot. At number 1, we have Bleeding Gums Murphy. Although only featured prominently in 2 episodes, it was at a time when Lisa's character actually had depth and maturity, rather than being an anxious know-it-all stereotype. Lisa bonds with Murphy over their feeling of isolation and love of jazz. Though these days the stranger danger would be questionable, it's still incredibly touching that Lisa develops a healthier outlook on life because of him. Upon discovering him in the hospital, they share a meaningful conversation, and Murphy decides to give her his saxophone, which is probably his most prized possession. It truly shows the bond they shared. With Lisa's childlike innocence, it seems she doesn't quite realise the gravity of the situation, as she returns after her recital to find that he's passed away. As with most Simpsons episodes, there tend to be subplots which don't always interweave with the main plot. In this episode, however, we see one of the rare moments where Bart shows how he truly cares for Lisa. Bart ingests a metal Crustio from his cereal and manages to sue Krusty for $500. Instead of buying something he wants, he sees how upset Lisa is and buys her Murphy's jazz album. A moving moment is shared between the two of them, which adds to the bittersweet nature of the episode. Lisa then gives the song to a local radio station, and it's played in Bleeding Gums Murphy's honour, with the residents of Springfield enjoying it, this perhaps being the first time Murphy was properly appreciated for the value of his music writing. Lisa proceeds to talk to Murphy in the form of a cloud, along with James Earl Jones's many voices, as well as having one last jam session with him, probably the most meaningful way to say goodbye. Overall, in my opinion, this episode portrays grief in the most powerful way. The tone is set from start to finish, with jokes being interspersed with the melancholy, in contrast to Maud's death, where it seemed like the death was the joke in itself. I hope you enjoyed my list. You may be wondering why some more important characters didn't make it, but this was probably either because these deaths were very glossed over or humorous, or because with the declining writing quality over the years, in my humble opinion, they didn't fully strike the sad note they were intending. Like and subscribe to let me know if this is the kind of content you want to see, and if you enjoy cartoons, definitely check out my other videos, as I make my own animations and would be so appreciative if you could help me kickstart what I love doing. In any case, thank you for watching.